Saints and Witches. A magical tale. Written and performed by Suzanne and Jake Tumnus.
Johnson had had the box for a while now, but something told her that now was the time to open it. She knew what was inside. Nanny Beth had said many times that of all her 9 great-granddaughters, she was the one who would be able to use it and use it well. She turns off her phone, pours herself a cup of mugwort tea from the pot and takes a sip. It was a plain wooden box, nothing much to look at. She unhooks the latch, opens the lid, moves the old tea towel that covers the mirror. Lifting it gently, she pulls the stand from the back into place. She dips her middle finger into the tea and wipes the liquid across the glass. The mirror is ready, and so is she. I shall go into a hare with sorrow such mickle care, and I shall go in Our Lady's name, aye, till I come home again. Elspeth looks into the mirror. Instead of blue eyes and brown hair, there are amber eyes and brown fur, and long ears tipped with black. She jumps down from the chair and makes her way to the back door. She looks up at the handle and down at her paws and heads out through the cat flap. It was the time of year where 3 drops of summer seemed to pause the winter storms. Beneath her furry feet, the path is frosty. There are snowdrops in the flower bed, but the sun is shining in a clear blue sky. She makes her way down the frosted path, feeling the way her new body moves. She takes her first leap up onto the garden wall and sees the world for what feels like the first time. The landscape is familiar, but she can see all around with her different eyes and sense new dangers. Should she go? The sun is shining on the hillside and something calls her to go there. She leaps down from the wall onto the lane, the tarmac hard and cold under her paws. What am I doing? I'm a hare. I don't have to follow the lane. I can go across the meadow. She makes her way along the hedge until she finds a gap in the thorny branches. She pushes through, looking up at the sky and listening. No danger there. And on she goes towards the hill. So much easier to climb a hill with those strong hind legs. She sees other hares heading to the same place. Monkey's Fold. Hares always seem to gather there, and now she knows why. There were more hares than ever, leaping, running, playing, until one calls them to order with a thump of her foot. This hare is bigger than them all. She stands on her hind legs, her ears tall and erect, eyes scanning the fold. Then she speaks. There is one among us who is new. She must learn, so through the seasons she must run. The hares scatter in all directions, zigzagging across the field. Elspeth runs in the chaos, not knowing where to. She slows as the panic eases. Catching her breath, she remembers what Nanny Beth had taught her. Through the seasons I shall run, until my light-foot journey's done, and I shall learn the ladies' names till I go home again. Her ears catch the sound of tumbling water. She follows the sound to the source of it. Among the splashing and gurgling, the story begins. On the slopes of Brown Clee in South Shropshire, there is a well. It is filled by a spring and overflows into a stream. It has been there for centuries, and a saint decreed that it should flow forevermore. But it hasn't always been there. Milburger was riding her white horse through the fields of Goddestoke. She looked every bit as regal as the princess she was, for she was indeed the daughter of a Saxon king, Merriwald of Maganset. She was the eldest of his 3 daughters, and like her sisters had turned away from the courtly life and taken holy orders. Now she was the abbess at Wimnicus, and so loved was she that in her lifetime she became a saint. She would come to this place often to find peace and tranquility away from the hubbub of abbey life. The sky was blue, the skylarks were singing, all around was peaceful, until she heard in the distance the sound of a hunting horn and the baying of hounds. She knew exactly who it was, a prince who wouldn't take no for an answer. He wasn't hunting boar or a stag, he was hunting her. Milburger urged her horse on, but a hare darted out from the undergrowth and startled the mare. She reared up, and Milburger was thrown to the ground, hitting her head on a stone. As she woke up, she heard voices. Not the prince and his men, but 2 farmers who had been sowing barley in a field nearby. Then there was the pain, her head throbbing, blood pouring from the wound. "My lady, are you all right? We saw you fall. We tried to help, but we've no water." The horse nuzzled Milburger's shoulder. Milburger placed her hand on the mare's nose. The horse started to dig at the ground with her hoof. Water began to seep through the earth, bubbling, spurting, gushing. The farmers gathered it in their cupped hands and began to bathe Milburger's head. The blood washed away, flesh knitted together, and the skin healed. Milburger stood up and dusted herself down. She thanked the men, stood for a moment in prayer, and said, "Holy water, henceforth and forever flow freely." The sound of the hunting horn, closer this time, the hounds louder than before. Milburger got back on her horse. "The hunters will come this way. The prince will ask if you have seen me. Tell him you saw me when you were sowing the barley, and make ready your scythes." As she rode away, the farmers went back to the field. They saw that the seeds had indeed taken root. The shoots pushed the earth aside. Green stalks grew tall as the ears of barley formed and ripened. They looked on in awe. Then, just as Milburger had said, the hunters came. The prince pulled on the reins of his chestnut stallion. "You 2, have you seen a woman on a white horse pass this way?" If you mean the Lady Milburger, then yes, she rode by when we were sowing the barley. Sowing the barley? But it's ready to harvest. Then he saw the seed bags at their belts and realised that Milburger would never be his, as she was no ordinary woman. We shall leave this prey uncaught. I will hunt her no longer. He turned his horse and rode away. On the slopes of Brownclea there is a well. It is filled by a spring and overflows into a stream. It has been there for centuries, and a saint decreed that it should flow for evermore. As a hare, Elspeth looks into the well. She sees her fur growing in all directions, the tones of grey, black and brown. She follows the stream downhill. The sun is bright. The land is greening. A buzzard calls out overhead. This is no time for a hare to be out in the open. Time to run. The seasons turn. The scent of hawthorn blossom is heavy in the air. She ambles along the hedgerow and sees a churchyard enclosed by ancient yew trees. She makes her way towards them and steps inside the hollow trunk of an ancient yew. Through the roots and branches, she hears them telling a story of a princess, daughter of an Irish king. She hunkers down and listens. Melangeth was kneeling in prayer in a grove of trees. She had left her land, her title, and her betrothed behind to live a simple life in this secluded place. Her bed was a moss-covered ledge beneath an overhanging rock, and her companions were the animals of the valley. So deep in prayer was she that the first she knew of the hunt was the hare diving into the folds of her cloak. She looked up and saw the hounds circling around her, their eyes fixed, teeth showing, lips curled. She took the frightened hare in her arms and soothed it with tender words. The hounds backed away, almost bowing in reverence. This is how their master, Prince Brockwell, found them. He dismounted from his horse. I see you've caught my hare. What have you done to my dogs? He urged the hounds on, but they stayed where they were. Who are you? Melangeth stood up and covered the hare with her cloak once more. She looked the prince straight in the eyes and said, I was once chased by a man and found my sanctuary here in the cloak of this valley. I grant the same to this hare in my cloak. You shall not harm her. I am Prince Brockwell. I own this valley. I ask you again, who are you? I am Melangeth, daughter of a king of Ireland. I seek only peace and prayer in this place. The prince looked at her. His anger cooled as he saw in her stance the dignity and poise of one of royal blood. Then he backed away and bowed in reverence. My lady, this land is yours. Build a church for your prayers. May all that come here find peace. If this land is mine, no animal is to be hunted here from this day forth. The prince agreed, and to this day there is a church in that valley, surrounded by a grove of ancient yew trees, and no animal is hunted there. Thunder rumbled across the valley. As a hare, she steps out from the shelter of the tree to listen and to feel the storm. She stands resting on her hind legs and watches as the storm follows the path of the river. Her ears catch the sound of a dog barking. Time to run. The seasons turn. She runs up the hillside along the margins of a cornfield, ripe and golden in the light of the setting sun, slowing as she nears the farm with the weathercock. The black iron silhouetted against the sky spins round as the breeze catches the tail. Maisie Bloomer, have you heard the rumour? Maisie Bloomer, have you heard the rumour? Pleasant's by name and pleasant by nature, your daughter's in love with Hare Beecher. Hare was the youngest son of Simon Beecher, the farmer. It had all started when Simon was taken ill with a fever. Maisie had been sent for she was a witch. Not the sort who spoils your butter and rides your horses at midnight, though she did talk to herself and mutter about people under her breath and carried a black hen on her shoulder. She was a witch who knew the herbs that healed. Pleasance went with her as she was learning the craft, and Maisie had seen the glances and smiles that passed between Pleasance and Hare, and they'd been seeing a lot of each other since then. So when Hare came to the cottage to ask for Pleasance's hand in marriage, Maisie was ready. "Are you able to keep my daughter in the manner to which she is accustomed? Do you have a job, Hare?" "Yes, I work at Dad's farm and I help out here and there and, not exactly." "Do you have somewhere to live?" "Well, I thought we could live at my dad's farm. Not exactly." Maisie could see the love in Hare's heart and knew that Pleasance loved him. The hen on her shoulder clucked. This gave her an idea. "Come back in 3 days, Hare. I'll have something for you." Hare ran from the cottage, and Maisie smiled. She went into the kitchen and placed the hen on the table. The hen clucked and laid an egg. Well, Maisie, she took that egg, she painted spirals and sigils on it. She muttered words over it, held it up to the sun at the top of the hill, held it in the river when the moon was shining on the water. Hare had used up all his courage the first time, so when he came back 3 days later, he was more than a little nervous. But his love for Pleasance gave him strength, even as he approached the cottage with its strange charms and accoutrements hanging by the door. Maisie was waiting for him, with the egg. "Here you go, Hare. Place this in the hollow ash tree for 3 weeks, not a day more, nor a day less. Then place it under a broody hen, and what will be, will be." Well, Hare did as he was told. He went to the hollow ash tree and placed the egg safely inside. He left it there for 3 weeks, not a day more or a day less. He took it carefully out and placed it under a broody hen. Well, nature did what nature does, and the egg hatched, and from it came a chick, a fluffy little black thing it was. But the chick grew and grew into a fine cockerel. Its comb and joblocks were the brightest red, its feathers were blacker than a raven's bottom, and its spurs were long and sharp. At that time, cockfighting was commonplace, and there was money to be made, so Hare trained the cockerel. He fed it on the recommended diet of raw steak, brandy, maggots and urine, and called him the witch's bird. He put the bird into his first fight, and he won. Hare had a shilling in his pocket. Another fight, another win, another shilling. The witch's bird was unbeatable. But the locals no longer wanted to risk their birds against him, so Hare took his cockerel to the city. The bird fought and won again and again, even beating Lord Derby's birds. But Hare wasn't in it for the glory. He'd made enough to buy that little farm he'd had his eye on. He filled the barns with cows and the fields with sheep. He fixed up the farmhouse and even made a little herb garden for Pleasance. He returned to Maisie Bloomer's cottage to ask for Pleasance's hand in marriage. "Good morning, Mistress Bloomer." "Good morning, Harry Beecher. Are you able to keep my daughter in the manner to which she is accustomed?" "Do you have a job, Harry?" "Yes, I do. I am a farmer with my own land." "Do you have somewhere to live?" "Indeed, a fine farmhouse, thanks to that egg." And so Maisie gave her blessing. Pleasance and Harry were married and went to live happily on the farm. Pleasance reorganised the herb garden, and the witch's bird strutted proudly around the farmyard. As a hare, Elspeth stretches into every part of her body, feeling every muscle, sinew and bone. Her front legs gallop and her hind legs bound as she travels across the field. She freezes as a fox calls out dangerously close. She looks and sees him. He sees her. He takes a step closer. She waits. Closer he comes. She waits. Another step. Time to run. The seasons turn. She runs onto the common. The rising moon casts her light across the land. In a clearing in the frosted bracken, she sees a white cow with a calf feeding from her udders. As the calf pulls away satisfied, a drop of milk falls to the ground. A voice in her head speaks the name, Mitchell, and the song begins. Give me your voice and I'll tell you my tale. I am the witch with the holes in my pail. I am the one that milked the white cow dry. I am the one that they blamed. Some say it was famine, some say it was a drought, but they all came to me when the grain had run out. They wanted my wisdom, they wanted my charms. I am the one that they blamed. What could I tell them? What could I do? They'd forsaken the land for a path that was new, no longer honouring well and tree. I am the one that they blamed. I called forth the circle, the white cow on the hill. They came and they milked her, their bellies to fill. I stood and I watched and I waited my turn. I am the one that they blamed. I had to do it, they didn't understand. The holes in my pail to give back to the land. Her udder's milk dry, she went on her way. I am the one that they blamed.
Asked for your wit, hung on your wisdom. You heal the sick, you told of the season, you said it would come. but how could you know? You are the one that we blame.
Red thread and twigs from the rowan tree, bind them together, say a prayer for me. Hang on a beam to keep the witch away. I am the one that they blamed. I went to the circle and turned myself to stone. They call it my prison, but I call it home. The rain began falling, the grass became green. I am the one that they blamed. You gave me your voice, now my tale is told of the circle of stones you call Mitchell's Fold. I live in a legend between the land and sky. I am the one that they blamed. As a hare, Elspeth looks out at the world. Around the moon, clouds are gathering. The fields are laid out before her. A feeling rises. She runs just because she can. Tail down, limbs stretching, leaping over ditches, running straight along icy furrows of frozen clay. She comes to rest, exhilarated. Snow starts to fall and she's mesmerized. Snowflakes falling silently on the earth. Beera's shawl covering the land. Hare was the queen of winter. She had shaped the hills and mountains with her hammer long ago, for she was a giant. She had blue skin, white hair, and one eye. Her shawls were made from snow, and when she washed them, she draped them on the hills to dry. If Hare was the queen of winter, then surely there was a king of summer. There was her son Angus, who lived on the Green Isle in the land of the ever-young. At the end of winter, he would travel with his cloak of gold around his shoulders, across the sea, bringing summer with him. Hare was always pleased to see him, but not too early, not too soon. Winter was hers, and she liked to have a full winter. She could see into his world through the well of ages, and he could see into hers through the well of youth. It was the time when there were only two seasons, winter and summer, but the world and the way things would be was still being set. This was when Bridie came to the valley. No one knows where she came from or who she was. She just appeared there, wearing green, and she was beautiful. Wherever she walked, snowdrops would spring up in her footsteps. But Hare didn't like snowdrops, and she took her hammer to them, smashing them back into the earth. But Bridie kept walking, and snowdrops kept appearing. Hare invited Bridie into her house and set her the task of washing her shawls in the well of ages. Day and night she was imprisoned there, and this was when Angus saw her. As he looked into the well of youth, he saw Bridie washing the shawls and lamenting her fate, and she saw him. Icy breath on frozen sky, hidden deep how she tries, she cannot smother all. Ice still burns with coals of flame where fire melts in summer storms.
Winter's hammer shook the earth, the seed still sleeping stirred. And she who walks the greening path through winter's cold, the sun will set her free.
I am the lost but not forgotten,
Right against the bitter wind.
he who sees remembers me,
A vision of your memory,
bringing light into the world.
a dream of how it will be.
Come, my prince, my
Oh,
king.
mother, release my queen.
He shakes the world with pounding hooves to raise the heat within. And we shall walk the greening path with cloak of gold. He'll come and set me free.
Look into the well of youth, see the flame I gaze upon, true beauty dressed in green. Why is she alone and weeping there? And the ice that binds her heart, why imprison one so fair?
Days grew short and night had won, the turn was close at hand. And from the land of ever young, with cloak of gold, the sun will come for me.
You are my light, you are my
The
world.
summer sun, it sings to me.
You're the inspiration and my
Your light
dream.
forever shines with me.
You're the one who transforms my
I long for
world.
you to come for me.
Oh, mother, release my queen.
Come, my prince, my
I'll
king.
weave 3 drops of summer sun into my cloak of gold. And she who walks the greening path through winter's cold, I'll find and set her free.
She may have only had one eye, but with it, Hare could see everything. She would welcome her son, of course, but her anger had started to rise. Angus arrived from the Green Isle with 3 drops of summer woven into his cloak of gold, and 3 days of winter were pushed aside. Hare found them, gathered them up, and put them in her bag. A welcome feast was laid out for Angus, and who should be serving but Bridie? Angus looked at Bridie. Bridie looked at Angus, each recognising the other from the visions in the well. Hare blinked her knowing eye, but said nothing. The evening passed with little conversation, and the next morning Bridie was back at the well, washing the shawls. In the evening, she served at the table. Again the evening passed with little conversation. But Angus took Bridie's hand, and together they left the hall. They woke in each other's arms, then they left together. Hare watched them go, and opened up the bag, pulling the days of winter out one by one. And though snowdrops appeared at every step as Bridie walked, their stalks were bent by the howling wind, their flowers stiffened with frost, their leaves bruised by hail, and Hare smiled. errands I have run, and now my light for journey's done. I have learned the ladies' names, now I shall go home again. As a hare she runs along the hedgerows, snowdrops bursting into bloom along the verges, shining in the light of the rising sun. Leaping up onto her garden wall, she turns to look at the world once more with those different eyes. Up the garden path, through the cat flap and up onto the chair. She sees herself in the mirror, the amber eyes, brown fur and long ears tipped with black, fading. I have been into a hare, with sorrow and such mickle care. I have been in the lady's name, a woman I become again. Blue eyes and brown hair in the reflection as she folds the mirror down, puts the tea towel back across it, closes the lid and puts the latch back into place.
Saints and Witches was recorded amidst the snow and sunshine of February 2021 in honour of the saints and the witches. We thank you for listening.